This is a 2024 Honda Passport Trailsport, and it's definitely one of my favorite SUVs on sale today. It's just over $44,000. You still get a 3.5 liter V6 under the hood. And the thing is, this feels like it has some purpose to it because Honda applied some of these off-road bits and pieces onto this car. So what we're gonna do in this video is have a look at the front end design, the side, the rear. I do like this exterior styling, and I also like the interior. However, there is one single problem when I'm driving this car, and we're going to talk more about that when we take this for a drive. So let's start with the front end design of the 2024 Honda Passport Trailsport, and let's check out what this is all about. The 2024 Honda Passport Trailsport is powered by a 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6, putting out 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. This is connected to a 9-speed automatic transmission, all-wheel drive. 0-60 is done in about 6.2 to 6.4 seconds. Fuel economy comes in at 19 city, 24 highway, and the price for this one is $45,875. Starting with the front end design of the 2024 Honda Passport Trailsport, I do like that everything here is blacked out for the Trailsport specifically. We also have the Trailsport badge here with a very aggressive looking grille. These daytime run lights typical for Honda, even though I do think maybe this design identity of Honda these days is a little bit anonymous, and I do wish that they could come up with something to add more identity into the front end of their cars. One thing I do like about this front end is pretty much everything you see in the front is all functional. There is no fakeness going on here. For example, these side vents here, you can see that they are completely hollow here. You have a functional air vent here with the indicator that is unfortunately just a regular old light bulb. I would like to have this be an LED. However, you do have LED fog lights housed all the way down here. And moving on to the grille, the lower section is completely open while the top part is covered up, but that's totally fine. Then you have this black piece cutting in to the headlight itself, and all the way down you do have a lower section that is also completely open right here. And the cool thing about this Trailsport is that if you want to, you can even add some more off-road capability to this by option for a fully functional skid plate all the way at the bottom. Now, coming up close to the headlight unit here, and I do like the styling that we have here. We talked about this daytime run light here, typical Honda design for this type of styling, SUVs. And then you have this, again, this black plastic piece just cutting in to the headlight itself. We don't have full LED headlights here. I do wish, again, maybe, I don't know, for this price point just over $44,000, I don't really mind that we do have just a light bulb for this part of the headlight. It's gonna bring the cost down. You do have a full bulb right here, as you can see. So we do still have some modern features in this car. I do wish that this daytime run light was a full thick LED and not this styling with all the texture that we have on it. It would be a lot cleaner if we just have one single strip of LED for the daytime run lights. Coming around to the side view, and this is what I love about the Trailsport, is their wheel and tire setup. First of all, they're not black wheels. Thankfully, we do have silver wheels in this case, 245mm white tires all around, and we have General Grabber all-terrain tires here. And just have a look at how aggressive these tires are, and I do think it looks good on this type of package. It makes it feel like this is a purpose-built, more off-road worthy small little SUV. It's still the same ride height as the normal Passport at 8.1 inches, but I do think even with the same ride height, you do have the suspension setting being tuned to more off-road capabilities, and also you have these wheels and tires that definitely make it look a little more rugged. Looking at the line flow of this car, I do think it has some very nice proportions to it. We have this shoulder line, and have a look at this. It goes right here, and then the designers decided to have a little bit of fun because they swooped it up here, but it still has a clear connection to, yes, you guessed it, the corner of the taillight down there. We also have another line going at the very lower section of the car, in addition to this black plastic going around the lower section and also around the wheelhouses. But in this case, I do think it's actually suiting the Trailsport to have this black cladding, even though in most cases I would like to have this be all body color. But since this is the Trailsport, having some black plastic down there doesn't really bother me at all. Now, looking all the way up top, you do have these integrated roof rails, which I also think looks pretty good. They're painted in this metallic silver paint, looking nice. I also like how the roofline slopes downwards and then being sent off with this beautiful little spoiler in the rear end. So let's have a look at the rear end of this design, because that is probably going to be my favorite view for the Trailsport overall. Coming around to the rear end, and as you can see, we do have this big spoiler up top. One thing that you could argue they could have done is to hide this wiper underneath there, but again, this is not a high-end luxury SUV, so I don't really mind having the wiper visible like this. It also adds some of that function and utilitarian styling to this design, which I actually think suits this specific car. These taillights reminds me a lot of a shrunken down version of the Ford Explorer taillights. Not a bad thing at all, because I do think those look very good. We do have LEDs here, but again, the indicator bulb in there is just a regular light bulb and not LED. One interesting detail here that was pretty surprising to me when I first saw it is if you go all the way down, first of all, everything is blacked out except for the Honda logo here, but if we go all the way down, check out these big exhaust pipes. These are proper bazooka pipes all the way down at the bottom. We have this sort of fake skid plate. This is all plastic, but I do think it adds to the overall rugged styling of this car. Reverse lights being located down here. I do like the symmetry that we have in the rear end. I also like the orange Trailsport badge that we have here with the mountains in the background, similar to what we have right here actually. Now, there are a lot of 3-row SUVs on the market today. However, this one is a 2-row, meaning that you do have a lot more space in the back here, since you don't have a 3rd row that you can fold down. If you need more space, you have this button right here on the sides to fold down the 2nd row and get a lot of space back here. Underneath here, you do have some additional storage in this little bay area down here, and that's pretty much it for the rear end. If you want to plug in a vacuum or something like that, you can still do that, because you have a 12-volt cigarette outlet right here. I don't see any proper house 12-volt outlet though, which would be pretty convenient to have back here. But overall, it's a pretty big size, and of course, this being power assisted as well. Closing down takes a little while for it to close down, and there we go. Welcome to the interior of the 2024 Honda Passport Trailsport, and I actually like what's going on in here quite a lot, because as I said, you gotta consider the price point here. Just over $44,000, you get a pretty confident off-road vehicle with the tires and all the off-road setups that we have here. And this interior also looks very, very clean. Even though some might say that an 8-inch infotainment screen here is a little bit too small, I totally disagree with that. What I do agree with some people saying is that the Passport's infotainment screen is angled right up to the sunroof up here, so you get a lot of glare. I would have want to have this be tilted towards the driver a little bit more than this. But the overall layout in here, we do have a lot of gloss plastic, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I always keep coming back to the price point of this car. Now, starting with the gauge cluster here, we do have a digital gauge cluster right in the middle, looking very nice, and we have some analog gauges on the side for the fuel and the temperature as well. And this is a perfectly fine setup and layout for me. We have a nice housing for it up top with this cap soft touch material, which is fantastic for this price point, that they decided to put some soft touch material up here that no one is ever going to touch anyway. The gauge cluster here is also configurable, so if you want to change some settings in here, you can do that by the controls here left on the steering wheel, and figure out what type of information you want to have shown in the lower section of the digital portion of the gauge cluster. Pretty cool, and pretty easy to figure out how everything works in here. Moving on to the infotainment screen here, as I said, a lot of gloss plastic, black plastic. You have a lot of apps here. This feels maybe a little bit outdated, this system in itself, but you do have navigation, you do have Apple CarPlay. It's not wireless. That is always something that I personally would love to have in every vehicle, is wireless Apple CarPlay, because I don't want to have to plug it in every single time. However, the integration of the screen, except for the angle of it, angling up to the sunroof, I do think the integration of the vents here look nice, and it's fine. Further down, this is what I love about the cheaper cars today, because the cheaper the car, the more common it is that you're going to have physical buttons for the climate control settings. And we do have a separated screen here that has this sort of matte finish to it. I really like the layout of the screen here. And you have these very rugged toggles for the temperature up and down, looking great and very easy to use. Super easy when you're out driving to just figure out where these toggles are without even looking to figure out the temperature. You have the fan speed here as well. You do have heated seats in 3 different levels for both the front occupants here. You don't have ventilated seats. I don't expect that in this price point either. And to the left of this climate control settings here, you do have this big red start button looking nice. The button situation in here though is pretty interesting because you have random buttons situated or located on different random places in this car. We're going to talk more about that in a second. Further down, you do have a little storage compartment here for a wallet or a couple of phones. You also have the wireless charging right here with some more storage, 2 USBs, a regular and USB-C, and a 12-volt cigarette outlet. Perfect. Seems to be the standard these days. Now, this is a very interesting layout for the gear selector here. All of this are buttons and they're all different buttons. I do think they did it this way so that you can feel exactly which button it is you're pressing. For example, the park is right up top. Then you have the reverse, which you press towards you inside of this little dip. And then you have neutral right in the middle. Drive is located right here with a big bezel or bevel around it. I do like how it lights up when you're pressing it, and if you press it 2 times, you're going into the sport setting, which means that you can use the paddles here for the gearbox when you're driving this car. More on that when you take this for a drive. All the way back here, you have automatic shut off for the engine on and off. It's idle. I always turn that off. I really don't like having the car just shut off at every single stop and red light. You also have the drive mode selector here. So you have normal, snow, mud, and sand. So it comes very well equipped, this car. Again, that's why I love this car. I do like this layout of the interior. I do love the price point at $44,000, just over. And I also like the styling of the exterior. So this is a great little car to just get you from point A to point B. Maybe you do a lot of gravel roads every now and then this would be the perfect car for you. Further back, we have an enlarged center portion here for the armrest. It's very big, feels almost truck-like this size of this thing. Open it up and you have a huge storage compartment down here with no connections though. I would like to see some USBs in here. I do like the orange stitching from the Trailsport logo coming back in the interior here as well. Looking at these seats specific for the Trailsport, I love that we have Trailsport embroidered in the headrest here with the orange stitching, and you also have some bolstering on these seats. Not too aggressive. I think it suits this car overall to have these type of mid sporty seats. And of course, they're also power adjustable. Now, moving on to the steering wheel here, we talked about the button situation earlier. So we have this sport button here. For example, we have the drive mode selections here in this gear selector layout. But if you want to have the heated steering wheel on, that button is located right here on the steering wheel itself. And then you have this interesting eco button. So you have drive modes here, but you have a separated green little button here on the left side of the steering wheel for eco. I don't know what that means. Probably not rev as high or something like that. Maybe you want to save some fuel, you just press this button right here on the side. Now the steering wheel itself, very nicely done. You have some perforated leather here on the sides where you're going to have your hands. Up top we do have the stitching going on the inside, the orange stitching coming back here. The buttons on the right side are for the cruise control settings, and of course the heated steering wheel button is located here as well. And the radio settings are located here, in addition to the settings for customizing the gauge cluster. On the left side, down here on the steering wheel, you have a couple of more buttons, for example, for the traction control and some safety features here, in addition to the adjustments of the side mirrors. All the way up top, we do have a standard size sunroof, and this is totally fine for me. I don't need the whole roof to be entirely made out of glass. I would actually prefer, as you know, just have this closed at all time and not have a sunroof at all. Last but not least, we have a pretty big glove box for the Honda Passport Trailsport. I like the styling in here. Just look at how this nicely flows into this car. It feels nice, and it feels like the exterior design has a good connection to what's going on in here. So let's jump into the back seat and see if I can fit behind my own driving position at 6'1". All right, jumping into the back seat here, and I do believe I'm going to fit pretty nicely back here. I feel like I'm sitting a little maybe too high up here, but it's not too bad at all. Head space is fantastic. Even though we do have this sloping roofline here, I feel like I have no problems at all with the head space, and the leg space also very good. Further down, we don't have any sort of heated seats back here. We do have 2 cup holders though, and a couple of vents in addition to 2 USB-Cs, and a here is actually the 12-volt house outlet is located right here in the second row. If you fold down the center portion, you get 2 more cup holders here right here in the middle, looking very, very nice. Alrighty, let's take the 2024 Honda Passport Trailsport for a drive. Let's get out of here. What I love about this car is that it's one of these cars that it doesn't try to be something that it's not. It's just a small SUV, 2-row SUV with great styling inside and out. You still get a 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6, 280 horsepower, 262 pound-feet of torque, connected to a proper, no CVT here. You do get a 9-speed automatic. 0 to 60, I don't think anybody cares who buys this car about the 0 to 60 time. But with the 280 horsepower, 0 to 60 is going to be around 6.2, 6.4 seconds. And even with these general grabber tires, it's pretty bumpy here. There we go. It's still a pretty quiet and smooth ride. I wasn't expecting it to be too loud because they're not super aggressive tires, but visually I think it just looks so much better to have this type of package. I want every single crossover SUV. There we go, up to 45. Not bad. Sounds decent as well. I want every single crossover SUV. If you're gonna have this type of package that's lifted like this, if you're not gonna buy a sedan, that tells me that you're probably gonna go off-road, but 99% of people don't do that still. But just for the visual appearance of SUVs in general, I think 95% of them look better when they have some off-road rubber on the wheels. And you know, for around $45,000, I think this is such a great deal. However, there was one thing I mentioned in the beginning that is sort of a little bit annoying to me when I'm driving this car, and that is the position of my knee, which, yes, I can move my knee, but I can't move this plastic piece right here. This piece feels like I can't get my knee comfortable here because this edge is right on top of my knee. So if I want to have it be comfortable, maybe if I move the seat forward to this position, now it's sort of resting in there, but I'm sitting so close to the steering wheel and I'm almost 90 degrees in my legs. So that is the only issue I have with the driving, the ergonomics in here is this section here. I want to have this be a little bit smoother. One thing I'm surprised by with the driving, how this car drives, is just how comfortable it is. It also, the fuel economy is not too bad. 19 city, I think 26 or so highway. Not too bad at all for a 3.5 liter V6. So we're gonna go onto the highway now. So let's put it into sport here, just for the heck of it. Why not? And let's floor it. The sound, V6s. It's pretty easy to make a V6 sound good though, but this sounds really good. And in sport, of course, what it's gonna do is just hold the gears a little longer, it feels like. Probably not the best idea to have it in sport setting when we're cruising on the highway, so let's put it back into just regular drive. Now these tires, you might think they're noisy, but I wanted to go on the highway to just show you that they're really not that noisy at all. Still very, very comfortable. There is some wind noise in here though, but nothing that's too bothersome. I'm really trying hard to find some major flaws with this car. Again, I keep coming back to the price point, $45,000. Yes, you don't get wireless Apple CarPlay. I would probably pay an additional $500 for that to just have that feature available if I own this car, instead of just having to plug it in every time. It just connects automatically as soon as I'm in the car. That's a pretty big thing that's super convenient to have. I don't know what else could be wrong with this car, flaws with this car. It's just overall what I would like to see SUVs be is just have some more off-road features to your design and to your functionality. Even though this sits at the same ride height as the normal Passport, which still is an SUV, so it should already be a little bit higher than, you know, hatchbacks and sedans. And I do think the added features, the added graphics that we have onto this car, it just makes it look a little special and also makes it look very, very good. So overall, I really love this car. This is a great looking car, a great driving car. It has all the features that I want. We have the tactile buttons down here for the climate control settings. We have a beautiful looking gauge cluster, even though maybe the housing doesn't really connect with the designs that's inside of the gauge cluster, but that's also a small little detail. So overall, for $45,000, I do think this is a great little car.